fix my mic real quick. Alright. How's it going, everybody? I'm the BTC Reaper, and my goal on this channel is to teach you how to reap the rewards of trading, whether the price is going up or down. So we did restart our Discord last night, for those of you who are wondering if we are going to resume it. So we will drop that in the description down below tonight. I will add that after this video publishes. Anyone that asked, I did reach out if you left a comment and dropped you a comment with the invite link. So let me know if that works for you. But over on our total for the daily, we are pretty flat. We did try to hit the top of our little neckline for that double bottom possibility, and now we are pulling back. So the rejection from that neckline could set us up to break our 674 and possibly continue lower if we're not careful. Momentum is pulling back, stochastic's pulling back, that RSI is continuing to weaken, our VWAP is in the bearish territory, so I would exercise caution. If that VWAP continues to drop down, momentum will continue to weaken and that money flow will break down. Again, if you're unfamiliar with any of those terms we just covered, visit our Mastering the Trade playlist. It will help you and it'll show you what these things mean, how to set them up, and it'll also go more in depth on what they do and why. Now over to the 4 hour here, we do have a little bit of a pullback. Sorry if you can hear the tornado alarms, guess we're gonna get blown away tonight, but stochastic is pulling back, RSI is starting to fall, momentum is starting to weaken, it is in the bearish territory as that VWAP broke down. If that VWAP does not reverse and create a new bullish trend, momentum will cause our money flow to fall, and that will cause altcoins to sell off. Remember, total is representative of the altcoin market cap. Over on the 2 hour here, we did hit that EMA. We tried to run up above our EMA bands, and now we are starting to pull back, so I would exercise caution. If we don't bounce off this red EMA, then we could end up coming down. Now, stochastic is heading down, RSI is weakening. That VWAP does want to head through that neutral. The momentum is trying to gain strength, but that money flow is starting to weaken. So if that VWAP makes a lower or weak high and then pulls back into the bearish territory, momentum likely will break down, and that will lead price action lower. And remember, if total drops, all our altcoins, well, most of our altcoins aside ETH, could drop as well. But usually the way things work, if you're not very familiar with how the cycles will pump, now that Bitcoin and altcoins are pretty much back on the same level playing field as the last season, we all have ETFs, so that's positive. So what that means is Bitcoin will usually go up, then Ethereum goes up, then the altcoins go up. So Ethereum pushing up today could be indicative that the altcoins may start to run up soon as well. Now RSI is pulling back, stochastic is pushing forward. We do have our blue above orange, so that is a bullish cross that is trying to give that RSI the strength to push price action forward. VWAP does have a higher high, so we are in the bullish territory. We also have a higher low, so we have a slight bullish trend forming here. If this bullish trend can continue, momentum could continue forward, and we could gain some strength here. Over on Bitcoin dominance for the daily, we need to zoom out. We did reject away from that head and shoulders, just like we warned you about, and that did lead Bitcoin down. Can't get our volume profile, there we go. So that did lead Bitcoin down because dominance weakened and Ethereum pushed up. Ethereum pushed up ahead of the rest of the market. Total really went kind of flat. So that is why dominance was weakening, because Ethereum and maybe dollars is increasing. If the dollars are increasing, either on stablecoins or on the Dixie, we could end up seeing some cash skin deployed. So we are going to delete this pattern now that we are well invalidated, and we could end up pulling down toward that point of control for this fixed range volume profile. That point of control, if we do not bounce off of with green candles, could end up making us slide even lower. I would watch for that 300 EMA. If we cannot bounce off our 300 EMA or any of the EMAs before that, we could push down toward our value area low, right around that 50-51% range. RSI is pulling back, money flow is pulling back, that VWAP is favoring bearish, momentum's pushing down, so overall I would exercise caution. If that VWAP continues to get this lower high and rejects for a consistent low, momentum will continue lower, money flow could break down, and then we would see the daily become more bearish here. Over on the 4-hour, we are well below that 300 EMA. We are continuing below our other EMA bands, so that's not very hopeful for a bounce forward. Stochastic is pulling back, RSI is pulling back, that VWAP is in the bearish territory, momentum is breaking down as well, and that money flow is heavy in that bearish territory, so if our VWAP does not reverse, momentum likely will bring money flow lower. That would weaken the daily and push dominance lower, possibly weakening Bitcoin. Remember, dominance can still decrease if Bitcoin increases, as long as the altcoins outpace Bitcoin. Over on the 2-hour here, we do have lower highs with lower lows, but it's not very well connected, so this is more of a bearish trend rather than a descending channel. If you visit that Mastering the Trade playlist, you know a descending channel brings you up is a bullish pattern, but a channel like this, where it's more of a bearish consolidation dropping channel, that's more of a bearish trend that will continue you to the downside if you're not careful. We do have this support range here. You have some ranges where we bounce here and here. If we do not make it bounce here, we likely will pull back toward that 53%. And if we zoom out, we do have previous support right around the same zone. So if we do not hold that, we could see a pretty decent drop down toward like our 53.5, then toward possibly 53 1/3, and then we could start sliding from there. Remember, any zone of consolidation like that is usually a good hang-up point or a point of support and resistance. You got your psychological zones too, but VWAP does want to push forward here on the 2-hour. Momentum is gaining strength. Money flow does want to head toward that neutral, so if the VWAP can break through, momentum could push up and money flow could strengthen. However, if our VWAP sees a lower high here, we could create a bearish trend as we have consistent lows, so a lower high would end up making that momentum stay here, and that money flow would end up rounding away, continuing down, and that would weaken those higher time frames. Over on the 1-hour, RSI is pulling back, stochastic is rounding away, that money flow is in the bearish territory, momentum does want to head forward, and our VWAP is pretty flat. It did try to break for a bullish trend, but it's not really going anywhere. So if that VWAP does not gain some strength soon, we likely will continue to reject away from our EMAs and then continue lower. Over on Bitcoin futures for the daily, we did break that 69K, and we are struggling to kind of stay near it. So if we cannot hold near that 69K, we could see price action reject lower. Remember, we did warn about that 65.5, and we do have around 57K on Bitcoin, but we do have the 61K here, 61.7 on futures. So if we hang up on that 65, then we break it, watch for 61, then watch for around 57, 56. But we also have our point control, that is around 62.99, about 63. So psychological area there. Stochastic is pulling back, RSI is overall weakening, the momentum does want to continue to round away as that VWAP is bearish, causing our money flow to pull back. If that VWAP continues to drop down here, momentum will continue to weaken, and that money flow will continue lower. Over on the 4-hour, we have a little bit of a gap. We did push down pretty quick, so that could be positive because gaps usually fill. They have an 80% likelihood to fill. So this could mean we could snap forward. We need to create a higher low here, followed by a higher high. If we can do that, then we may push forward. Stochastic does want to run up. VWAP is in the bullish territory. Momentum is pushing forward, but it's starting to round as that VWAP wants to curl. So I would watch that VWAP close. Money flow is pulling back. So overall, the 4-hour is not looking very positive. I would watch if we continue lower. If we do continue lower here with that VWAP, momentum will round away, and that money flow could end up breaking down. Over on the 2-hour, I'm just hitting everything I don't want to right now. Over on the 2-hour, we are pulling back. I would watch as those EMA bands are starting to pull back as well. If those EMA bands break below each other, we could see a bearish trend continue. Our momentum is starting to pull back as that VWAP is starting to head down, and the money flow is clinging to the bullish territory. So if that VWAP breaks down, momentum likely will follow. Stochastic is rounding away. We do have a bearish cross with that orange above blue, and the RSI is starting to curl back with it. So if that stochastic breaks down, we could end up breaking lower. Over on the 1-hour here, We do have a little gap to the upside. Again, that's on the 1 and 2 hour. Stochastic wants to pull back, momentum's rounding, VWAP's pulling back, and the money flow is selling off. So overall, we don't look very positive. Best case scenario, if we do continue lower, is that gap would end up being filled at a later date. And then we also have our gap at that 69,665. So we could end up dropping down, hitting our 65K, and then making a bounce and filling those gaps. But I would still exercise caution if we pull back and drop lower, because that would be a break of our 300 EMA. And it would be pretty hard to get above that EMA because that's a strong support resistance area. Stochastic is starting to pull back, momentum is rounding, RSI is pulling back, VWAP and money flow are weakening, and the RSI is pulling back. So overall, the indicators are saying we are breaking down, and we could continue lower if we do not bounce off this double EMA band here. So over on Bitcoin for itself, we are continuing to drop away from this rising channel, so we will call this channel played out, and we will delete it. So if you're watching for that, you're probably wondering where we could go. Our momentum is pulling back, Stochastic's pulling back, RSI is weakening, that VWAP is in the bearish territory, and the money flow is trying to break bullish, but it's struggling. So if that money flow cannot push up with our VWAP here, we could see the bears continue to push us lower. Over on the 4 hour here, we do have a manipulation X that does want to drop us lower, so I would exercise caution. We could see a quick drawdown like this, or sometimes they don't always play out. Usually when they're in pairs, that's when you want to watch out. Stochastic is pulling back. We do have our orange above that blue. RSI is pulling back. Momentum's rounding. That VWAP is heavy in the bearish territory, so if that VWAP does not make a bounce and break for a bullish trend like it did back here, our momentum will continue lower. Money flow will start to break down, and that could lead the daily lower, as if the 4 hour starts to gain more bearish momentum, that will lead into the daily. Remember, lower time frames lead the higher time frames. But I would not go very much further beyond what we cover, because anything beyond the 1 and 2 hour can get real murky. If you're just starting with trading, maybe just watch the daily and the 4 hour. Again, we suggest that in the Mastering the Trade. Sorry, I needed something to drink there. RSI is pulling back. Our Stochastic's dropping down. VWAP has lower lows with a weak high, and the money flow is pulling back as a result. So if that VWAP continues lower, momentum will break down, money flow will continue lower, and then the 4 hour and the daily will push lower as well. Over on this 1 hour, we are trying to make a bounce off this purple EMA, but it looks like we're about to lose that fight. RSI is pulling back, Stochastic is pretty beat down, our VWAP is favoring bearish, but we have higher lows. If that VWAP can push through our neutral and get a higher high with higher lows, then we could continue a bullish trend, momentum could head forward, and money flow could bounce. That would give us the possibility to run forward. We did have a quick drop down, then we had a quick run up, and we are retracing some of that run up. Remember, usually when you get a quick move one way or another, you do correct it. So if we can bounce off this EMA, either our purple or our red, then that could give us further bullish momentum. However, if we break these and hold below them, that's where we could slip to those lower price points that we did mention on the futures, so I would watch that futures TA if you're just watching the recording now. But over on graph for the daily, we do want to break our 31,954. We do have this bearish flag, so if we break out here, we could push down right around that 27-cent zone. So I would exercise caution. Stochastic is pulling back, momentum is rounding away, VWAP's in the bearish territory, causing the momentum to drop, and money flow is remaining bearish. So I would watch. If that VWAP does not recover, momentum will continue lower, and money flow likely will follow. Welcome, whoever's joining, drop a comment in the chat if there's anything you want to see. We can cover other coins that you don't see. Usually we stop on ALGO. And also, if you want to join our Discord, we are going to add that to the description later. Stochastic is pulling back, RSI is pulling back, VWAP is in the bearish territory. This is on graph on the 4 hour. Momentum is in the bearish territory, pushing down as well. So I would exercise caution. If that VWAP continues to favor bearish here, momentum will continue lower, and that money flow could break down. That would then start to weaken the daily. We are struggling with this resistance area, and if we cannot break and hold above it, it's very likely this channel will play out. Over to our 2 hour here, we are rejecting our EMA bands. We did come up toward that yellow EMA, we got manipulation X, and then after that we just broke down. We are consolidating after a breakdown, so that is a bear flag. Remember, I like to use this parallel channel. You draw it sideways, then pull down, then you use your trend line, pull from the top to the bottom, and then you apply that down for your breakdown point, and that would be about 31 cents, just a little bit lower. So if we do see this channel break us lower, we could see the other channel play out due to that. RSI is pulling back, stochastic is pushing down, that VWAP is favoring in the bearish territory, so I would exercise caution, but it does want to break bullish, as you can see by that green dot on our momentum wave. So if our VWAP can create a higher high with higher lows from here, momentum could push forward and money flow could reverse. However, if that VWAP rejects with a lower high here, we could get consistent lows, and that would cause momentum to remain bearish, and money flow could end up breaking away even lower, weakening those higher time frames. Over on the 1 hour here, we do have our 300 EMA. We did make a bounce off, but now we're pulling back toward it. So I would exercise caution. If we revisit that EMA, we could end up breaking it. We did wick down to it several times. Stochastic does want to run up. RSI is trying to push forward, but it's starting to flatten out due to that stochastic being beat down over here. So if our stochastic can continue forward from here, RSI could gain strength, and that could push the 1 hour further. But if our stochastic starts around with our VWAP here, we could see RSI and our price action drop lower. Momentum is pushing. We do have a bullish divergence as we have consistent price action with higher lows on this indicator. That does create a bit of a pinch point. You have like your baseline, then you have your pinch point, you come up to that, and that can blast you off. Usually that can push you up, but you need your other indicators to suggest the same. I wouldn't go just based on this, because if you did back here, you would have lost out in the long run, because we did end up dropping down. You might have gotten a quick run up if you were lucky, but not many people would have gone too much further there. So overall, I would exercise caution. If that VWAP breaks down and we see a lower high, that money flow could continue lower, momentum could reject, and then we would see that flag play out, and then our rising channel could end up playing out and bringing us lower as well. Again, if there's any other coins that you would like to see besides what we cover, again, we stop on ALGO, so 3 more to go. Drop it in the chat or in the comments down below. Over on the daily for Ankr, we are starting to pull back. I would exercise caution as we tried to hit that EMA and we got rejected. Stochastic is pulling down, RSI is pulling down, our momentum is rounding with a red dot as that VWAP wants to break with it. So if that VWAP continues this bearish trend and we get lower highs and lower lows below our neutral, momentum will start to pull back, and that money flow could end up pulling back as well. That would then cause us to hit that 42.89 like we warned about. And if we cannot get bullish strength there, we could slide to our other support levels like 40.49, 37.67, and 34.85. Over on the 4 hour here, we did hit that EMA and got rejected, that 300 EMA. So overall, we did try to push back toward it, but we stopped out right around that purple EMA. We are struggling to break these EMAs and hold, so that could end up breaking us lower. This does look like a little bit of a rounding top that could form, or you could call this a shoulder, a head, and a shoulder. So draw that here. So a shoulder, a head, and then a slanted shoulder. So this could end up breaking you down because that is a bearish pattern. You would apply this right around where your shoulder would break. We could say right around there, and that could break us below that 42.89. So I would exercise caution. I can make that a different color if you like, just to separate from support. Stochastic is pulling back. RSI is pulling back. That VWAP is favoring the bearish territory. Momentum is pushing down. We did try to break bullish with our VWAP, but both rejected. If they cannot break for a bullish trend, our money flow likely will follow. And if the 4 hour money flow does flip, we could see that daily start to weaken. Over on the 2 hour here, we do have a little bit of a rounding top. That is like a sharp drop there. So I would exercise caution. We hit these EMAs and we just keep rejecting. So we aren't holding above EMAs. If we can't hold above the EMAs, it's very likely the bearish momentum could continue. Stochastic is pushing down, RSI is pushing down, but just remember we did mention that Ethereum did pump, so altcoins could pump after Ethereum is done. Our VWAP is in the bearish territory, momentum's pushing down, and the money flow does want to reject. So if that VWAP stays in this bearish territory, momentum could push lower, and that money flow could push lower as well. Oops, sorry, jump to the daily instead of the 1 hour. Over on our 1 hour, we are rejecting that 300 EMA. If we cannot break above that EMA and hold, it's very likely, like I said, we could continue lower. VWAP is staying in a bearish trend. Money flow is staying bearish. Momentum's breaking down. Stochastic's breaking down. Overall, the hourly does not look very good. Over on XRP for the daily, we are starting to drop away with our double top possibility. So I would watch that could end up breaking us lower. We do have the potential to that to start us kicking down that bear flag that can push us toward 44 cents. That would push us right around 49, so we could get hung up in between there if we're lucky. Stochastic is starting to round away. RSI is pulling back. VWAP does have lower highs and it does want to round for a lower low. If that VWAP makes a lower low, momentum likely will pull back. Money flow could reject, and then the bears could start to gain some control here. Over on the 4 hour, we have a manipulation X, and we are starting to drop down pretty quick. We broke that EMA and just snapped down. So we could end up retracing this, making a bounce off our neckline, but I wouldn't be too hopeful if the rest of the market's going to pull back. If our altcoin, our total, does continue to drop, then it's likely XRP could follow. Now stochastic's dropping down, momentum's rounding, RSI is pulling back, our VWAP's in the bearish territory, and the money flow is pulling back. So overall, we do have a bit of bearish favor. I would exercise caution if that remains on the lower time frames. We could end up breaking lower. On the 2 hour, we do have a little bit of hope here as we did hit that 300 EMA and we did make a bounce. So if we can make a bounce and continue from here, we would need a strong green candle next after this indecision candle. If we get that strong green candle, that could help propel us forward, and then we could end up pushing to our 54. That would invalidate the bearish possibility, but again, watch that VWAP close. It's in the bearish territory, momentum's pushing down, and money flow is breaking away. So overall, that 2 hour is not very strong. Over on the 1 hour, we are breaking back into bearish territory. RSI and stochastic are dropping, momentum's favoring bearish. Our money flow is starting to pull back, and the VWAP is struggling. So if that VWAP cannot break forward, we likely could continue lower. Finally, for ALGO for tonight, since no one suggested any other coins and ran away, but we are trying to pull back here. This could invalidate that bullish scenario. Again, that was a very loose pattern and we said not to trade on it. Stochastic does want to round up. RSI is starting to pull back though. Momentum is rounding. VWAP has lower highs, so I would watch as that VWAP is pulling back. If that VWAP ends up breaking down, we could see momentum pull back. Money flow would then break down, and we could end up visiting that 1618 despite us invalidating this pattern. I will delete this pattern now just because it's invalid, but just remember we do have that support range right here that we could get hung up on, and you would want a bounce off of that if we're going to see any bullish momentum if we do pull back. Over on the 4 hour, you see we rejected that 300 EMA. Stochastic is pulling back, RSI is pulling back, momentum's rounding away, VWAP's favoring bearish, and the money flow is bullish, but it could end up breaking down if that VWAP continues to favor bearish from here. Over on our 2 hour, we did hit our 300 EMA and we did make a bounce, so this is positive on the 2 hour. VWAP does want to break forward, momentum wants to push up with the green dot, but the stochastic's starting to round. I would watch that stochastic close because if it does round and break down, RSI likely will follow, and if RSI does follow, that could bring price action and VWAP lower with them. Over on the 1 hour, we do have several bounces off this red EMA, so this could be a double bottom where you get a drop and then a little bit of a rise, then a drop and a rise, but I would exercise caution. If we do not break above our blue EMA on the next candle, we could invalidate that and push lower. VWAP does want to round away, stochastic is running up, RSI is pretty flat, momentum is trying to run forward, but that momentum is struggling. So if that VWAP does not stay in the bullish territory, our money flow could fall flat, and then we could see the bears push everything else lower. I would exercise caution there. Thank you for watching tonight's video. I hope you have a great night.